Hey, all you wonderful subscribers, and those of you who have just dropped in on this incredible podcast here. So, I'm Todd Hayen, and this is William Impey over here on this way, I guess, right? Is that right?
Last time you did that, you pointed the wrong direction.
I know, I pointed the wrong direction. So, I'm now pointing in the wrong direction, but apparently it's pointing at you. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're going to start with a clip here in a minute, and we'll talk about it. It's kind of an interesting one. So we're anxious to hear what you think. So please leave comments when you can. And William, you want to say hello?
Hello and welcome. I'm chomping at the bit for this one because I saw it this morning. And this guy's
it's a good one. It's a
good one. It's I won't say too much to spoil it, but it's so obvious to me what's going on the second I see.
Don't tell them yet, because I'd be curious to know. Be curious to know if, when people watch this, if they go, yeah. So I don't want to say, just like, don't want to say anything else, because there may be people that do say that. So I just gave it away. Sorry. So I just did the very thing I didn't want to do. So anyhow, here we go. I'll play it and then we'll talk about it.
Never expect a woman to care about you in a relationship, because they don't. What they care about is how you benefit them. If you get a better job, she sees it as more resources for her in the future. If you make new high status friends, it improves her social life. Everything she values about you ties back to how it serves her needs and her interests. They don't care about you. They're only going to care about what value you bring to the table and how it serves them. Whether you like how that sounds or not, it doesn't make it any less true.
Go, William.
What do they call people that are just hustling something online? You're selling something. You're a salesman.
Yeah.
There's a word for it that I'm blanking on, but I mean,
not clickbait.
No, but it's you're like a shill for an idea. You're a huckster. You got something to sell. Yeah. But the first thing that I noticed in this guy is that you come out with this false confidence. Never. You start with never. Yeah. Fuck off. You fucking never. Who do you think you are? And so there's this false confidence of I'm going to tell you something, and then it's cynicism is such a slippery thing, right? Cynics will always love to couch this in, I hate to break it to you. And the minute that you get that kind of, I hate to break the hard news to you, you're like, wait, 3, 2, 1, and cynicism. There it is.
Yeah. Now, do you believe this guy believes what he's saying? That he isn't just selling something, or that he actually believes it? Used car salesman doesn't really believe what he's saying about his perfect car. Do you believe this guy believes what he's saying? I think he does. So, I mean,
Yeah. I mean, that's a very good question to ask. And I would say that the first thing that I noticed when I listened to him after my initial reaction of I've seen this hustle before, is I go into therapy mode, and I'm I want to get curious. I'm
yeah, right.
I wish
Same
this
here.
guy was in my office so that I can ask him the questions of
what mother wound does he have?
Yeah.
Right. Or father wound. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that he clearly he's operating under a spell.
Uh-huh.
He's spellbound. You can tell that. And so to a certain extent, yes, I think that under the spell of his wounding, he needs it to be true in a way that feels like it is true and justifiable. And that's the wounding. That's the defensive nature of it, needing it to be true in order to defend against the truth that he doesn't want to accept. So the answer is complicated, but I think he does believe it on one, the defense, the ego defense has put him in a spell of believing it, but ultimately that's a very thin veneer, and it wouldn't take before he would
and he's very much objectified the relationship. I mean, the very first thing I would think, the red flag that would come up for me, is that he's never really been loved. He can't really identify anything other than the objective, And the first time I heard it, I just said, so what? I mean, it's of course, everybody there's no such thing as unconditional love in a romantic relationship. So everybody has demands. Everybody feels it doesn't mean they don't care about you. They do care, however, about the things he says.
Yeah.
And he cares about the same things coming from her. You know, they might be a little different, like sex and respect and whatever, but she could say the same thing. Well, no man cares about you women. Don't think they do. All they want from you is sex and respect and regard, and you know, to see you as some hero and whatever. And you go, okay, yeah, that's true. I mean,
well, that's the thing too. And like, you know, like all of this stuff that you see online, there's always a sort of shred of truth.
Yeah.
But you know, as I was saying too, there's it's everything is happening on all the different concentric circles here, and like what he's right on the evolutionary sort of plane of things, where that there is a kind of evolutionarily a kind of transactional thing. Simone de Beauvoir points this out in The Second Sex about, you know, let's get honest here. I mean, at some level, there is a kind of sex for safety trade-off being made in order for, you know, for human existence to continue. But the second thing about your point, which is a really good one, about him not believing in unconditional love and how in relationships, yeah, there are a lot of conditions, but then the farthest, you know, ring on this is that this is definitely someone who I would explore as having some religious or spiritual trauma. Because if you like, give me a man who doesn't believe in unconditional love, and I'll show you someone with a spiritual wound, you know, because they can't connect.
Okay.
Not to sort of match his cynicism with my own, but you know, some of the worst strains of patriarchal Roman satanic influence in the church drive men to that belief. Women are fallen, and women are, you know, the source of evil and chaos. Of course, that's not the I think the correct or the most sort of enlightened way to read the Bible, but it's very strong. And this guy looks like a Southern American, maybe, or, you know, at least he's influenced by that kind of culture.
And that statue behind him.
What's that? Yeah, the statue.
The statue behind him, I think, is a Native American, like on a horse.
Right.
I'm not quite sure why he chose.
He's signaling that, you know, he's sort of at peace.
The warrior. Yeah, right.
He's on the other side of the Mason-Dixon line and happy about it. I'm making up shit. I don't know anything about the thing about him, but I would explore that. Like, where's this coming from? And is this from church indoctrination? He's also, I mean, clearly this guy is in what they call the manosphere. Anytime you hear men talking about status and denigrating women as being kind of out for one thing, you know that this guy is trying to speak to what they call incels.
Oh, yeah. I thought of that too, right from the start.
Men who are sort of red-pilled and working under this belief that the reason that they can't find any romantic or sexual companionship or have any success with women is because the game is rigged against them and it's unfair, and it's not about their inadequacies as men. This guy's also definitely he's got issues with adequacy.
Yeah, and you know, the thing to not support his worldview, but to say probably one of the reasons why he has that worldview is he may not have ever had a relationship with a woman that did not do the things that he describes that women do, because that's the kind of woman that he would attract, you know, having the mindset or the worldview, whatever you want, that psychology, whatever you want to call it, that he obviously has. He's not going to attract a woman other than one that only wants from him, that doesn't want to care for him. He may attract a woman that is not as imbalanced as that as he would be presenting, but he may not recognize anything other than her need for him to be the provider and whatever he describes. And that then brings us back to this to this possible mother wounding thing, that he doesn't have a healthy relationship with the feminine. It's not properly integrated. Yeah, and you know, one thing I want to say too, that we've talked about this a lot, integrating the feminine. I'd like to hear how you would define that, William, after I kind of say something about it. I think a lot of men think that when they hear that, I know with my clients it's true, that they think integrating the feminine means they act more feminine, that it means that they bring in the feminine and they become more feminine. If you integrate the feminine properly, it means you're more feminine. It's actually kind of the other way around, if it's anything. Integrating the feminine does not mean you present it necessarily. It may be in certain subtle ways that we don't usually define as feminine. It doesn't mean you become effeminate, you know, you don't become more gay or whatever it might be if you've integrated the feminine properly. It's something different than that. And anyway, William, why don't you tell us what it exactly it is?
And that's
they
my
fear,
theory.
Oh yeah. That's why they don't integrate it, because they fear that.
Sure. And my theory, and maybe it may already exist out there. I mean, I almost kind of hope that it does. I'm more than happy to let it not be mine. Is that one of the core causes of misogyny is the overlap between the immature masculine and the feminine. And when you're moving into adolescence, you have to distance yourself from the immature masculine, and because there's so much overlap with the feminine, that's where you distance that.
Oh, okay, that's good. That's a good way to put it.
That could be out there. But integrated feminine. Maybe this is just because I was talking about this the other day with a client, but let's look at the warrior from the masculine and the feminine perspective. So the warrior in the masculine, it's the capacity to tune out pain and stay focused on the goal. Okay. I can withstand the suffering and the misery and being away from my loved ones and not having comforts in order to just stay focused on the goal and get it done and bring home the prize, bring home the win, bring home the whatever. And in order to do that, I have to be able to be in a kind of cold, dispassionate place. I'm driven by love, and that's the core. So it's not that it's void of love at all, because a true warrior is going to be driven by a love of, like I say, it's a soldier, a love of country, a love of protecting the ones he loves. Now, if you look at warrior energy in the feminine, then we look at the huntress, and the huntress moves slow in nature, is tuned into nature, is listening and feeling. It's the wind on your neck. It's a faint, subtle smell in the breeze. It's intimate. It's me and this thing that I'm stalking, and I'm going to have to kill it, and I'm going to have to penetrate into its guts with my hand and pull it out and put it into my body. I have to be receptive. I have to be compassionate and empathetic, and that, the wisdom of our indigenous brothers and sisters who have taught us you have to become in that shamanic way. You have to be the deer, which is very empathetic and very connected. Both of them are teleological. Both of them are about sort of essentially bringing back the boon, completing the mission. But one leans into the feminine and one leans into the masculine. So a male-bodied person, presumably, identified as a man, who has integrated the feminine in the warrior line, will have the capacity to do both when needed. I can be a warrior in a war, and I can be a hunter or a huntress on the hunt, and I don't confuse the two, and I'm fully capable of both. Right?
Yeah, very, very well put. I like that.
We could look at other channels where it would be, but that's just one that comes to my mind.
No, that's a good one. That's a really good way to explain it, because you're basically explaining it from the masculine perspective, which makes sense. So in this case, with this guy, can we make an assumption that we both would agree on that the feminine is probably not properly integrated with this guy? Would you say that?
It's wounded. I mean, I wouldn't say across the board. I'd have to really listen to this man for probably 10 sessions before we would really see where he's blocked and where he's open. It's very, very rare that you find a case of a man who has absolutely no capacity, no integrated feminine.
Oh, of course not.
And it's always going to be unique for him. So I would say that, but yeah, I mean, that's like always as clinicians. It's like we start from the suspicion and see where it takes us. So I would start.
It's like the red flag, where I would, and be curious to know if this is different with you. If I had him as a client, the very first thing that I would look at is his relationship with his mother growing up, and where in his sense of feminine love and feminine expression in particular was faulty with his mother. And again, let's say it wasn't perfect, and let's say it wasn't absolutely horrible. Let's say he wasn't like beaten by his mother or whatever was not really extreme. I think even at the very beginnings of it, if he had a sense of unlovability, if he had a sense of not being able to identify the mother love the way he should have, that or the way she should have presented it, that when he started to have relationships with women, that was just reinforced over and over and over again. And so Yeah. So then he can blame it on the women like he is in this clip. But really it's more of his inability to take it in properly.
Yeah.
And
no,
so, but
I do the same thing. I would say maybe one caveat would be I would work energetically and see if I'm tuning into a whole lot of, I mean, he's presenting it as a defense, or is he presenting it as an opportunity? If it's a defense, I'm going to ask him a question like, where do you think that comes from?
Oh yeah.
How do you think you came to that conclusion? And just listen.
Oh yeah.
If it's presented as an opportunity, I'd say that makes me curious. Tell me about what was going on with mom and dad when you were growing up.
Yeah.
And then listen closely to see if you're going to see that transactional sort of nature of things where, dad was never enough, as much as he provided, it was never enough. And mom didn't really show any loving affection to him. She only saw him as a paycheck. And when he didn't meet that expectation, and then obviously this is the domino effect you're talking about. And then if that's true, he's carrying that imprint of love into romantic relationships where he's finding women who are going to play out this psychodrama of transactionality, him, select, provoke, distort. He's going to select for that kind of person. He's going to provoke it in them, and then he's going to distort their response, all trying to see if he can't get a different outcome, in that Alice Miller kind of way. Let me see if I can provoke you to demand of me to meet your, basic needs. And then if I can talk you out of it, then that means that I've finished the business that I couldn't finish with mom.
But let's say, I'm blaming him. I'm blaming mother right now. Let's blame the culture a little bit, because I actually think of both of those things. You can have a very little bit of the mother wound, and you could end up like this being in the culture we're in, because the culture then creates not only him, but creates the women he runs across. And I think it's very prevalent in the culture that he's right, as far as what the women are looking for and what they're dealing with and how they relate. So let's throw that around.
Well,
a little
sure.
bit.
We'll take a feminist perspective, I suppose. I mean, it's funny with the word blame. I mean, from a healing perspective, that's not helpful. But if we look at sources, what's origins? Yeah. If I look at this from a feminist lens, I go, yeah. Well, why the fuck do you think that so many women in this culture, in our society, see things transactional? Because they see men who have let them down, men who think of their interests first, men who squander their money on drink and other women and don't bring it home, or men who are not present, men who are distracted by other things. And because of their failures, it's on us now to try to extract from them the kind of security that we feel entitled to, because they've let us down and they don't show up for us because they're all little boys masquerading as men. I mean, if I was to hear that from her as a perspective, like the wife or whatever, him, yeah, I mean, I would perfectly understand where she was coming from and why she saw things in that way. Because if he's like most men his age and in that culture, my guess is that she has legitimate reasons to feel as though he may be letting her down in those ways. A lot of men do.
Yeah. Well, it has become, I think, again, in the culture, I think this idea of transactional has had most focus, because anything, consciousness of the intellect is the supreme ruler in the culture now. It's like consciousness of the heart is not. And we were talking about that before too, this idea that the unseen, the metaphysical, the spiritual, the divine, the soul, it's like, that's nonsense. I mean, from the culture's point of view, from what it is that is presented to us, whether it be in school, whether it be at home, whether it be with your social media, with your buddies, whatever it might be. In reality, though, that those are very, very strong, powerful parts of being a human being. And they can't be ignored that easily. So that's where conflict comes in. If it was all transactional, why would this guy be worried about it? It's like if he wants a partner for his reasons, for his transaction, then it's like a transaction. It's like, I'll give you this if you give me this. And, why does he care if the women care about him? That's his whole point, is that I'm going to tell you something that you guys don't know. Don't think that women care about you, because I did. And I thought they did care about me. And look what happened to me. I got, this is what I learned from it. And that's his whole point of the clip, is to warn everybody. Don't think they're going to care. Well, why do you care that they care? I mean, if these energies I'm talking about, the divine, the metaphysics, whatever it might be, are totally gone, then people would be like robots. They would
he's trying to displace blame. It's not my it's not my inadequacy. It's your transactional kind of unlovingness that's the problem, I think, for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But then why does he think that they should care about him if he doesn't care about them? I mean, what if they're not fulfilling if he's not fulfilling his side of the contract, if he's not doing the things he lists, having social friends, making money, whatever it might be, why should she give him something if he's not paying his side of the contract?
I think, to answer your question, is like there's just an overcoupling. Like maybe he can't reconcile that both are true. There's a transactional nature, and then there's an unconditional and conditional loving nature of the relationship. But it's like he believes, if there's some truth in the transactionality of this relationship, then that negates the possibility of love. And I mean, he says that in some direct ways. But I want to go back to a point you made, because you made a really interesting point. This thing about blame this on, I don't know what, patriarchy? No,
I'm using the vernacular.
Yeah. But
I'm not being a therapist there. I mean,
so
everybody blames everybody.
Yeah. Where are we at right now? I think that right now we are in the decline of the shadow masculine and the rise of the shadow feminine, and they're intersecting in a way. So, you can see peak patriarchal kind of influence in the past, but that's not really true, because I think the true thing, the truest way to understand the times that we're in it's a convergence. It's the rise of the shadow feminine and the decline of the shadow masculine. And the shadow masculine is kicking up a lot of shit on the way out the door. Andrew Tate, these kind of red pill incel types being one of them. This kind of like this clinging to hyper masculinity in the last death throes of patriarchal influence, because as we can see, institutional patriarchy is on its last legs. One more piece on the transactional. It's very interesting from a tantric perspective. If someone asked me what is neo-tantric perspective, one of the ways that you can put that really simply is that most people, most of the time, see sex as transactional, right? I'm going to give you my body so that you can have your orgasm, and then you're going to give me your body so I can have my orgasm, and then we're done. And as long as that it's equal, and I got my orgasm and you got your intimacy and I got my orgasm, then it's fair. Tantra is not denigrating that. There's a transactional, recreational kind of thing about sex that's fine, but if we put our attention to making it about something that's deeper, making it about no longer about simply I need to achieve emotional safety in you or orgasm in you. It's just about connection. The bringing together of these two energies for healing and consciousness raising and for connection. But this is the thing that, and I almost guarantee you with a guy like that, you propose this kind of approach to sex and he would laugh at you.
Huh. Yeah.
Did you see my point? This is speculation to this poor guy. I mean, we here to defend himself and say, "Fuck off, William. You got me wrong. I'm actually a."
Yeah, well, definitely could do either one of us. Yeah, I mean, but anyway, we're using him.
So, forgive me for straw manning you, but you see my point. Like my instincts would be that would probably be an attitude that you might find in a man like him. Right? Like, what do you
I think surfacely, definitely surfacely, but I think that's his wound, though, is that I think he wants that. I don't know if you presented it to him, if he would take it seriously, just like you just said. I would agree with that. But I think, just like I said a minute ago, for him to be sitting there and going, well, I got really burned, and I'm going to tell you why, because I thought I mattered. I thought that the woman that I was with cared about me. What does that mean? What does care mean? What does he mean when he says care about you? I mean, that's the very interesting for him way to put it. He doesn't say love you. He says care about you. And what does that mean? Why should anybody care about anyone or anything? Do I care about the food that I eat? No, I don't care about it. I'm not worried about how it feels. And that's the way that he's presenting it. It's like, well, when you're in a relationship, they should care about you. So I think that he wants that, or finds that missing, that he doesn't say have a transactional event like sex and gets only an orgasm out of it, because that means she doesn't care about you. You know, if you have sex with this woman, all she cares about is her orgasm. And so I think he wants that. I think he wants
I totally agree. I mean, if you were to read between the lines, what is he really saying in all of this is, I absolutely need it to be undeniably true that there is no such thing as conditional or love in relationships, and that's only transactional, and that is why I'm not to blame for the breakdown of my relationships. And the displacement, it's not me, it's all women, and there's an invitation to support his ego in the collective. Like, if I can convince all of you, and this is how fragile that belief is, I need to convince the entire world to collude with this belief in me to hold back this tsunami of a need for actual caring love. And that's probably why he's on this mission. I got to convince everybody so they can.
Well, I mean, that's a hugely important point that I was going to ask you a minute ago when we first started this. Is doesn't it mean something that this guy makes this clip, that he has to preach this? And that's what you just said. You know, that was one of the things I thought of in watching. It's like, okay, you know, this is your view on things. Why do you have to tell everybody? Why is this so important? Yeah, right. Exactly.
Because his need for loving, like, feminine nurturing is a fucking tsunami.
Yeah.
And right. And his ego alone is not going to fortify. He needs an entire culture. He needs to fortify with patriarchal kind of other men who are also wounded in this way, to kind of build a fortress against the invasion of this reality of the need for mother's love, for feminine.
Yeah, otherwise it's his fault. It's a fault of his. If he can't get agreement on it, then it becomes something he has to look at in himself.
100%. Let's talk to that wounded little boy inside of him that thinks that the reason that he feels unloved is that he's not worthy of it.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
And that child is terrified inside of him.
Yeah, as makes sense.
And you know, especially when when it's that vulnerable a wound, no wonder he needs to enlist an army of other men with him to defend against this truth.
Yeah. Well, it's that, you know, it goes back to that whole unlovable thing. It's like children blame themselves for feeling unloved. And they say, well, the only reason why I'm going to be loved is nothing to do with anything, you know, that's eccentric, that is, you know, intrinsic to me. It's all about what I do. It's about how much money I make and what friends I have. And you can get the illusion that I'm loved if I provide those things, but I'm not really. It's you know, and he's expressing that idea. I'm curious to know what he thinks is enough for her needs that would make him feel comfortable. Like, how much money does he have to make? How successful does he have to be for her not to reject him? Because it seems like he's been rejected. And it's like, well, I'm not being rejected because I'm unlovable. I'm being rejected because I don't make enough money.
Right.
And whatever. When
at this point, it'll never, I think he's trying to say, and maybe he just says it directly, it'll never be enough. No matter how much you provide, she only will ever see you as a means to an end.
Yeah, what benefits her?
Don't be fooled by this belief that that number exists. If your salary were this, if your status were this, that then somehow that would unlock her love for you, I think he's saying that forget the idea. That's never going to happen. Don't even try. Don't even bother to try and meet her need for resources, because it's a fool's errand.
So what is it? What is it that makes somebody realize, like anybody, not saying a guy that has these issues, but anybody, what makes them realize that their relationship is not transactional? Do they have to get in a car accident and become a paraplegic or something, and then their wife stays with them and takes care of them to prove that to them, or what? Like, what is it that shows them that it doesn't really matter? But it does matter. I mean, in the way that he describes it, if he were a bum that just sat in a basement and watched TV all the time and drank beer and never played video games and never did anything, I mean, if he was the consummate boy in his relationship, what woman would care about him?
Well, you're right. I mean, you're making a really good point, because you get into this provoke and distort cycle, and it's really self-destructive. So let's take the example of a car. You're right. Good one. Car accident. Okay. Let's fantasize that this man finally has a car accident. He cannot meet his own needs at all. He's totally helpless, and he's now completely reliant on her. Here's one way that could go. That could immediately, he could feel her love, and he could see her sacrifice for him, and suddenly it would break through, and he would go, oh my God, this woman must care for me, because she doesn't need to be doing as much as she's doing, and she's doing it not only without complaining, but doing it with a sense of love and care. But let's say that that's a bit of a fantasy and unlikely to happen. More likely, if he's got a really resistant ego, defense around this wound, he's going to have to provoke and distort. So what he'll do is he'll get into the car accident. He'll be completely, helpless and reliant on her. She'll show up for him, and then he'll start to needle her with, "You're going to leave me. You're going to leave me. I know you're going to get fed up with this." And if she can withstand it and go, "No, I'm not. I'm still here for you. Just leave me. Just get the fuck out of here. Just abandon me now. I know you're going to do it anyway." Right? And she holds the ground. No, sweetie, I'm not going to do that. I'm with you. I swear to God, I'll be here no matter what. And he will. And so two things. This is the hopelessness, is that his wound will do that until he's unfortunately successful. And she'll go, "Hey, listen, if you're not going to receive the love I'm giving you, if you're just going to sabotage it with this wound, then I will." And then
I told you,
I got it. I knew it. And my ego is gratified. Right. And then
you don't care.
I proved it. I knew all along, and you've just proven it to me.
Well, he's going to do that even if he's not in a car accident.
Oh, I'm sure in that way. I'm just saying that, like,
no. That's a really good point, but we don't have to. I'm the one that brought up the car accident. We don't have to go that far with it. If he's in what we would consider a decent relationship with a woman who doesn't have a whole bunch of baggage herself, and he's not making the money or the stature that he thinks she needs to care about him. He'll do the same thing. He'll start the provoking. He'll start drinking or taking drugs or whatever in order to prove his point that she doesn't care, even though it's not about the money, or the stature. It's about him. It's about his character. And you get that conflated all the time. It's like my performance as a provider and as a whatever. Is it because I don't make enough money, or is it because I'm an asshole? It's like, which one is it? And I see that in couples therapy all the time. I see the guy that thinks he's like, I make a lot of money and I'm brilliant and all of this, and he treats his wife like shit.
Well, that's the thing, is that what would come out is that, look, no, it's you make enough money, just you're an asshole. You're selfish.
Yeah, right.
That's why you don't feel any love and care for me, is because you make enough money, but you don't.
Well, I'm an asshole because you treat me like shit.
So of the
and it's like
you provide, but you don't give me presents and you don't protect me.
Right, exactly.
So you're failing of 2 of 3, and of course, let me indulge in a fantasy. Let's say that we take this man back in time to pre-patriarchal, pre-civilizational times. Okay, and we go back to the
what year is that? What year is that, William?
I know. Allow me my fantasy, Todd. So we go back in time to pre-patriarchal, pre-civilizational times, to the old ways of healing, right?
Okay.
And what happens to this man after this fantasy car accident, or this thing he gets into? Well, he's taken into the care of a loving elder woman. And what he receives from her is the kind of loving care that is only that really only elder, fully initiated wise old women can give. And she nurses him back to health, right?
Okay.
For no money, for no exchange, just because
Mhm.
that's what she does, because he's wounded and she has the medicine in her. That man finds more healing in that dynamic, I think. And I think even living in a culture where he knows that that's there for him already prevents the wound from being as deep, even if in his personal life he's experienced these kind of woundings, right? Because he has this sense that the culture is organized in a way in which there is direct access to the feminine. Our culture under patriarchy, and especially now at the very end of it, the tail end of it, on its way out the door, there's just where do you think incels come from? Because there's like, well, if I can't have sex with a woman, there's no other avenue for me in order to get anything, because the feminine is still relegated, and sort of kept away by these, these cultural barriers, right? Well, before we got to that place, those weren't there, right? I think you and I talked about this on the podcast once before about what to do with a boy who's 13 or 14 and driven mad, with horny all the time, but is not, but isn't ready to have a girlfriend or have a wife. Well, there were wise old women who would take care of that for you. And not only that, but in the process, teach you how to be a proper lover. And so you would be initiated into the sexual. You would have had that experience. You will have sort of taken the pressure off that, pressure valve, but also been initiated into how to be with a woman by a wise old woman who you're not going to attach to because she's old, right? She's not, you don't want her as your girlfriend or as your wife, right? But she brings you into that. And then having that, it immediately disempowers all of the kind of demonic energy that's going to pull you into this incel shit. You
right.
You won't go there. There's a circuit breaker in the system that'll pull you out of that. We don't have those circuit breakers. And then
do you think we did? I mean, do you know cultures that did just what you're describing?
Fantasizing. I mean, I don't know. I think
I think it'd be interesting to know that, because it seems like a necessary thing, not just for somebody who has some twisted psychology going on. And when I say twisted, I don't mean like totally psychopathic. But maybe it's not necessary for the boy that's brought up in a healthy mother environment or father environment. Maybe it's not necessary to have that taught to him by the elder sexual woman.
Only one of the ways, but yeah.
No. Can I comment on something you said about your hypothetical of going back in time with the car accident? The thing that came to me that I thought was an interesting part of what you're saying is that one of the things I tell clients all the time is that you're not going to find, if you feel you're unlovable because you didn't receive the proper mother love when you were growing up, you're not going to find that in a partner. You're not going to find the mother love that you missed, because that can only be presented by mother when you were a child, not even now. Obviously a lot of men get attached to mothers when they're older and they're in their 30s or whatever. And that's that whole dynamic. That's very dangerous. But what you presented, I thought was interesting, because what hit me was that if you're in a car accident and become really highly broken up and disabled, and need to heal, that you essentially are returning to infancy. You're returning to pre-adolescent boy that needs mother to heal him or to take care of him. And that's proper within the psychological realm. So in that case, maybe you can receive the mother love you didn't get when you were 6 years old. If you are broken so much physically that you're not a man physically, you can't pee on your own, you can't whatever. And if you're tended to by the mother and she's loving and takes care of you and heals you, maybe you can get it that way. And that's kind of what you presented. I thought was very interesting. I mean, I would be curious to know what you think if that same broken man many years ago tried to find that kind of care from his partner, which is his age and he's romantically in love with, which happens a lot these days. I mean, you don't have to go back in time for that one. Does he come to some kind of mother healing through that relationship?
Well, that's a good, really, really good question. And it's a yes and a no. You have to be healed enough in order to seek healing from your partner. Your partner cannot be your therapist and your partner, right? It's just not going to work, because you're going to burden the relationship with that role. If you've done enough of your work, if you've received enough of that wounding elsewhere, that you're ready to actually, I think that means that you're ready to then finish that in relationship with a loving partner. This is why you'll see people that are so deeply wounded, and they go into relationship and they go into a codependent. I need you to be everything to me, and it's like, you're not ready yet. You're just going to keep, because it's going to belabor, these men who will find a woman who actually is maybe even looking for a romantic dinner, maybe even sex, and then instead trauma dumps on her. And she goes, hey, I came here for a romantic night or a little bit of fun. What the fuck are you doing? That man goes out and seeks healing somewhere else through therapy or whatever healing modality, to the point where he's healed enough that then he comes to her open-hearted and able to talk about, these woundings that he has, but also capable of carrying enough of it that he's not dumping it on the relationship. That's when the relationship is adequate to finish the job. If, on the other hand, too, you get a man who's gone through therapy and done enough of that work, but still hasn't found the right partner, that work is never really going to complete, I don't think, not in the same way that a loving partner in a secure relationship can give him.
No. And I think there's two. I'd add to that by saying there's two other elements that are important to consider. One is that the man that looks for the mother in his partner is disaster. Okay, he consolates the boy archetype and becomes, this boy figure that he wants mother to take care of him. Okay, so that's disaster. So, but in a situation where the man is incapacitated, say physically, he's either really ill or he's been in an accident or whatever, that is not a constellation of the weak boy that needs to be nurtured. It's an actual physical event that takes place. However, the other element comes in, which would make this not work as well, is that he wants a romantic, physical, sexual, whatever you want to call it, relationship with his partner. And he does not want that with the elder feminine, the elder woman that takes care of him, the mother figure. And that's one of the biggest clashes we have with the mother wound, with the whole idea of the mother wound, is that there is never a time in a boy's adolescence, unless it's like really messed up, there's not a time where he is sexually attracted to his mother. That's part of the wounding, that he wants to pull that away and seek that elsewhere, like to move his projection of the feminine on his mother and move it in a healthy manner somewhere else. If you have a mother that's together, that's psychologically healthy and sound, she will welcome that and she will allow that to happen. She will encourage it. But then you have some mothers that are not like that, that have, a grip and they don't want to let go of it. They don't necessarily want to have sex with their son, although that happens too, which is really off the scale.
The enmeshing mother does, but it's emotional incest. It's not sexual incest.
Yeah, right. Although we do see that incest in families, but it's very, very rare.
Sexual incest from the mother is really, really rare, right?
Yeah.
But emotional incest is.
Oh my God, no! That's
these days.
Huge.
You ever met a man that wasn't emotionally incested by a mother? I mean, in terms of my clan and close brothers that I know, very few. They all got a little bit of that in some way. Yeah. And is that normal? No, I don't. No, I don't think so.
Optimum for health. It's like
no. I mean, but I think all of that is like these are just. This is the fallout of quote unquote civilization. We live in a box.
Well, it is, but you open up you open up a big scary box with all of that. It's like it's almost like when you look at a lot of this stuff psychologically and try to kind of integrate the psychology with the culture, with human culture all through time, you run into this like, why are we like this? Because we obviously can't handle psychologically the complexity. I was just talking to Cindy about this morning, that it seems like the only truly healthy, and I'm just making this up because I've never lived in it, but the only truly healthy human culture is indigenous cultures. If you go way back in time, you look at Native Americans, you look at, they worked, and they were smart. They were still humans. They had all the same attributes as far as being a human is concerned. Yet they knew how to integrate all of this. They knew how to live with nature. They knew how to live with amongst one another. I mean, problems, of course.
Yeah.
And community, all of that.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, well, what happened? That's probably what was intended.
Nuclear families and 4 walls in one house. I mean, like, I can break it down really simply. Like, one of these like driving forces in the enmeshing mother in modern Western civilization is the empty nester kind of fear. You break it down so simply. I'm emotionally incesting you. I'm enmeshing you. I'm clinging onto you. I got your dick under the pillow. I don't want to let you go, because I need you. One of the major reasons why is because the minute you leave this house is empty, because your father left a long time ago emotionally. Even if he's there loving, though, then I'm in a fucking empty house. Well, to your point, what if there was no house? What if that house had no walls and you were in community, or you were living in community? You're not fearing the empty house. So it's like, hey, as soon as you go off to get married or go to college, great, because me and the girls are going to go and play our game, because we all live together, as opposed to I'm going to be trapped in this empty house and have no one to be with. So I literally, I mean, when I say civilization, I literally mean the 4 walls of this single dwelling family that we not only that we barricade ourselves in, that we pour all of our money into, like all of the value that we carry is like in this thing. Crazy.
That's a really good point. I never thought of it that way, but man, that's huge. Totally. Because these, again, human communities did not have 4 walls, and it was so integrated. Everybody's activities, everything everybody did was all together. There was not like a house with a family. Even if it was a big family, even if it was extended, you still have that isolation that occurs. And I really don't think humans are built to deal with that. And
this is a problem of evolution. That we've evolved.
Well, we don't have a choice. Obviously, now we can't go back to that. But my God, there's so much stuff that's so off the. I mean, the whole cell phone thing, and I mean, you could. Do you know? Are you familiar with Jonathan Haidt's book, Anxious Generation?
Yeah,
where he goes. Yeah, where he goes into the whole thing with the cell phone thing. I mean, it's really frightening. And we could grab a hold of almost every technological advancement and use the word blame again, and we can blame it for a lot of the problems that we're having. And this goes all the way back to the horse and buggy. It's like,
I was thinking too about the point about the 4 walls. And years ago, a group of friends and I went to one of these. It wasn't like Pioneer Village, but you can go and see like what it was like. They still have the longhouse or whatever. And I remember we were looking around and all the beds, and then there's a central fire, and it's amazing to be in just to be energetically in that kind of space. And one of my friends, she's giggling like where mom and dad going? Fuck. And I remember thinking like, I don't think they go anywhere. I mean, I think if you hear a noise over in the dark, and then the next day you say to your friend, like, what's the noise I keep hearing over the dark? Yeah. I've heard that noise too. And it's just like, I mean, for our culture, it's like this concept is traumatizing that you would have sex in the same room.
Right.
But if you look back at those cultures, I mean, I think it was just kind of like, oh, that's sex. You'll get there when, but 15, 16, you'll start to figure it out. But for now, just don't go there.
No.
And latency period anyway, they just go, that's gross. And
that may be one of the things that kept it healthier than it is today. We were talking about having
normalized, that it was like, if that was what's
right.
Because what's the other alternative? Hey, honey, let's go out in the woods with the mosquitoes and hide it from the kids. What the hell are you talking about? I'm not going out in the mosquitoes, and what are we hiding from anyway?
Yeah.
It reminds me too of like men, women, whatever, who will have these attitudes toward cannabis. Oh, we should legalize cannabis. Isn't it wonderful? Canada's so enlightened. The rest of the world's so fucking barbaric. And we have legalized cannabis. And I feel guilty if I light a joint in front of my child. If I'm stoned around my child, they don't even know it. I feel guilty. And I'm like, why? Do you drink wine around your kids? Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Right.
You don't feel guilty? Oh, no, I wouldn't feel guilty if I had a glass of wine. Maybe if I was really drunk and misbehaving and, it was upsetting them, sure. But even if I'm stoned, even if they didn't see me smoke it, I feel guilty. And I'm like, immediately I'm like, but consciously you're like, you feel like it's so enlightened that we have it legal. And like, do are you hiding it from your kids? Oh no, like they know what it is. They smell it in the street.
Do you think anything's child inappropriate?
Yeah, of course I do.
Okay.
But marijuana wouldn't be one of them. I think you should give children marijuana. But I think if we all agree that smoking marijuana is a relatively like low, like harm sort of profile a thing to do, we're all doing it with awareness that there are these harms. Hiding it from our kids is utter insanity. Encouraging weirdly enough too, hiding it is an encouragement. I tell this story all the time where when I was like 15, 16 years old, we also go out to the park. We would go and shoulder tap to somebody and we'd get them to buy a case of beer. And we'd go to the park, we'd start a fire and we'd drink the beer and we would get fucking so drunk that we'd throw up. So this friend of mine, he lived in France and he came over to Canada from France and he sort of integrated into the group and he was invited to one of these things. And he's sitting there with a beer and he's sort of enjoying his beer and he's looking around and he's like, what the fuck are you guys doing? He said, well, what do you mean? He's like, we're getting drunk. We got this beer and we're gonna get drunk. He's like, why the fuck would you do that? And we're like, I don't know. Like, why do you not want to do it? He's like, I don't know. I've been drinking beer since I was like 3. Wine on the table, people drink. When we drink, we have dinner and we drink and we're civilized about it and we enjoy it. But like, what the fuck are you doing? And I remember like this thing clicked in me, and I'm like, oh, there's like he's got no taboo. He wanted a glass of wine. He just held it out and they poured it. Maybe they put a little water in it when he was a kid. But there's just no taboo. But for us, it's like, no, don't even, would never show it, never see it. You never see your parents drunk. They hide it from you, or they do a very good job. And so the taboo builds. And then finally, when you can break the taboo, you're delighted to break the taboo. You break it just because you can. And you're going to go overboard. And so all of these taboos that we put on these things, they literally serve to create this thing to break through. So yeah, I mean, in terms of age appropriate, I mean, yes, definitely. You're not going to show your kids porn. You're not going to hand them a joint. You're not going to get them drunk when they're young. But pretending that those things don't exist, not talking about them, coddling them, keeping them away from it, that's the attitude I think that's backfiring in our culture now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that. Yeah. I mean, that's a huge topic you could talk about forever.
Drag queen.
Well, not just age appropriate, but things that, cultural evolution. Like I wouldn't necessarily think it's good for kids in this culture to have their parents have sex in front of them or in the same room or whatever. But
no, but that's because they're programmed differently too, right?
That's right. And I think being programmed a particular way has impact. And I think some of it is bad and dangerous. And some of it is like, who cares? I mean, kids should be having sex when they hit puberty. I mean, that's how they were built as animals, and that certainly isn't something that the culture approves of.
Yeah, and they should be encouraged to do it in a healthy and safe way as soon as humanly possible, and not walk around with this, what is this thing? When am I going to do it? I mean, I think that causes so much distress, especially for young men. Okay, you're ready to do it. Let's do it, but let's do it in a safe and contained way.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I could speak too about the whole age appropriate thing. It's so funny that like people are freaked out about drag queen story time, and I have a lot of compassion for that, for people that are conservative that just don't want that. They don't want their children exposed to queer, ideology and stuff. And I'm like, as much as I have empathy for that, my daughter has grown up around trans queer people like everywhere in her life. There are couples, same-sex couples. She came in while I was watching Paris is Burning, this great documentary about the early drag Vogue kind of scene in New York. She sat down and watched it with me. She was very interested in the fact that these men were wearing dresses, and she thought that they were very, amusing and entertaining. And she would sashay around the house for a couple of days, kind of imitating them. And then it was nothing. And now she doesn't care. And now it's just like, there are straight people and queer people and trans people and non-binary people. And for her, it's just like, But then you take someone who'd never got exposed to that, and then they walk in on you watching Paris is Burning. Oh, she also walked in on me watching an Andy Warhol documentary in which there was, because he originally was doing like gay pornography. She's like, what the heck is going on in here? And I'm like, oh, hey, not appropriate for kids. But it's like when you get a kid.
And how old is she?
When she watched the Andy Warhol documentary? Oh, I don't know.
Well,
8,
just rough. Oh, okay.
8, 9 kind of thing. She just got a flash of two young men in a seductive pose, and Andy Warhol kind of, in the background.
Yeah, my only comment with that, I would rather not get into that, only because it would take forever. It's a long topic. It's a big topic. But the only thing that I would say is that the kinds of things that you were just talking about, it conflates a lot that I don't think I don't think being homosexual is the same thing as being trans, say, for example.
Sure.
I think there's a very big difference, and there's a difference between what kids are exposed to and at what age and whatever. And I think to really get into that topic seriously, you'd have to kind of
well, my point is just this, that why is it that my daughter is not traumatized by that, but other kids could easily be? And I would say
traumatized by which one of those things?
Well, for example, like if you take a kid that's been very sheltered from that kind of, way of being in the world, it's a shock to them. They grow up in a traditional family house where they've never heard the concept of two men being in love, and then to see, men, it's shocking, it's overwhelming to them. They like it, really kind of does them for a loop. Whereas if you've been around that for most of your life and it's normalized, and then when you see it, it doesn't shock you, doesn't confuse you, it doesn't make you question what you know about the world.
I think as far as the gay world is concerned, I'd agree with you 100%. And I think there's a lot of conservative thinking that psychologically is not sound, to think that if somebody like a boy sees two gay men in a movie or something, that they may turn gay. I don't think that works that way. And even if it did, I mean, there's more to it than that. It isn't just what you're exposed to.
Well, it's not, but it's also not like there'll be no gay men if there's no concept of homosexuality. There'll just be very confused homosexual men.
Yeah, right. But the trans thing is a little different, I think. And I do, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but I one of the things that irritates me beyond all end is conflating the two. Is
trans
saying
existence and trans ideology. I mean, that's a different. I think you're right on that point for sure. Yeah.
Well, we may disagree with this. I don't know. It's
well, I mean,
we should sit here and fight it out.
There are people that are that have this lived experience of feeling as though they were born in the wrong body, or feeling that they feel more comfortable at presenting that way. And then there's an entire radical ideology that's sort of that comes out of that. But that's not directly connected to it. It's just an ideological thing that sort of uses that as a basis for understanding the world and for indoctrination. And I think that the most important thing is to take those things and separate them. So yeah, you're right in that we definitely, I wouldn't want my daughter exposed to someone who's insisting that if she thinks that that men can't get pregnant, that she's a bigot. Yes, I would not want her exposed to that, because it's going to make her feel bad for having a pretty natural view of the world, or at least But the existence of people that have this experience is a whole separate thing. There's the plane of immanence, and then there's the plane of transcendence. There's like what's happening, and then the story you're telling yourself about it. And I think if we can conflate the two, yes, if that's what you're saying.
And I have to work hard at this. Well, not that hard. I have to work hard at this idea that it's perfectly fine. And I'm not talking about trans. I'm talking about anything. It's perfectly fine as an individual to think anything you want to think. I mean, if you want to believe in fairies, if you want to dress up like a fairy, like a literal one, if you want to spend your life thinking and doing things that are completely outside the realm of what the rest of the culture believes is real and normal and whatever, fine. I mean, I think most artists fall into that category. Most great composers and whatever, they see the world entirely different than the average
morally
person.
Void world, what you're describing, a world, and this is likely this is coming to me through Dostoevsky. Shout out Theodore Dostoevsky. Right.
You're saying that's what I just is it morally
all things are permitted is a world that is completely
no. I'm not saying that. I didn't say all things were permitted. I'm saying within your own mind, all things are permitted.
Yeah.
Within your own world, and it's not all things. I do think there's a line. I do think there's a deviance, and this is why I said it's hard. It's hard to make that kind of statement that there is. I mean, essentially, that's saying there is no psychosis. There's no medical reason to say that somebody is missing out on being a fully integrated human being if they've got these weird shit ideas. But I put that line pretty far out there. If somebody is psychotic, I've had clients like this that come in and tell me about fairies dancing in the backyard or whatever. And I know this is a very cliche thing to say, but if it doesn't hurt anybody, it's, if they want to be different, if they come to me to say, I don't want to see the fairies anymore. Okay, we'll work on that, whatever it might be. There are so many people, going back to trans, there's so many people in history that have thought of themselves. I don't know if they describe it the same way in modern times that a trans person would describe it. But, you look at Richard Wagner. I mean, he wore women's clothes all the time. He was like totally obsessed with, he didn't do it in public, but he was totally obsessed with his belief that he was, I don't know if he believed he was a woman, but he was into that.
It sounds like transvestitism. It's not.
Yeah, right. I have no idea. I mean, I don't think anybody knows, with him. But that's not the issue in my view. The issue, and I'm one to say this, so if anybody's watching this that wants to think I'm nuts, that's okay. I do believe this is a concerted effort. This is a part of an agenda to present these things, and I feel really, really bad for the gay community because I think they've been conflated into this trans thing that trans people are grooming children to become trans, and the institutions support them and don't let their parents involved
because they heard that one about them. That was the gay community empathizes with the trans community on one level because they got that shit too. They got that. The thing about gay men is that they're going to groom your kids and get them.
But that, I don't think that actually happened anywhere. Maybe in very isolated groups.
Sure.
This whole social contagion with trans and the doctors and the medical facilities that are performing these surgeries.
I hear you on that point. Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm upset about.
And we're on the same page because, we're talking about that coming from an ideological perspective based on that, not the thing in and of itself. But yeah, no, for sure. And I think a lot of people in the queer community who are queer liberationists and theorists are up in arms about these conflations. There's also a lot of empathy because, they kind of see a lot of crossover. But, I think right now you're right. We're starting to see a kind of moving away from that, which is liberating for everybody because that wasn't helping anybody. And getting back to some hard reality. I mean, even just what I constantly am hoping for is that people, when we start talking about this, know the difference between sex and gender. That would be a great thing. If anyone wants to open their mouth about this issue, if you don't know the difference between sex and gender, shut the fuck up. If you don't know the difference between transgender, transsexual, and transvestite, if you conflate the two and you have some kind of impassioned attitude toward it, what the fuck? There's three completely different things. And what I see now is that so many people are jumping into this debate, and I'm like, what are you jumping in on? What queer theory have you ever read to say that queer theory is fucked up?
They don't people don't fucking know anything. I mean, sorry. The masses are about as dumb as a box of rocks. I mean, that's a terrible thing to say about my culture, but it's amazing how uninformed most people are about things. They have opinions about things they really don't know shit about.
Yeah.
And sorry, if you're going to argue on the level of intellectual knowledge, if you're going to argue that, say, just for example, because it's a huge issue, that Trump is a shitty president. If you're going to argue that, then argue on facts. Argue on things that you can point out and say, well, he's shitty because of this and this and this. Don't say he's shitty because he combs his hair over, or whatever, or because he's I mean, it's this whole tariff thing in Canada. I mean, it's okay, if that's shitty, which I think it's pretty shitty, then tell us why you think it's shitty. Know something, have an informed, don't just say it's shitty because it's costing me more money. I mean, it's anyway. I hear you. Get me going because I'll just go bonkers.
No, but you and I just both agree on that. That I mean, it's I get frustrated and I get sort of pissed off about it, because it's like we would be getting so much further along in this debate if people just knew basic terms.
That's right.
We're arguing from first principles, and we're
Right.
arguing in good
Right.
faith. But
Exactly.
when you hear people say like, oh, there's only two genders, do you mean sexes? Or they think, oh, what do you mean masculine? That's not fair. All men are. I'm like, I didn't say male.
No.
I said masculine. Oh, but what's the difference? And then they want to act as if that's up for debate or something, or that we can get into a philosophical discussion around the term. And it's like, no. Male is biological, and masculine is gender. Those are different things, fundamentally different things.
Nobody knows that shit. My belief, and maybe we could have a session on this. I believe the entire trans issue, other than the part the agenda is pushing, other than the nefarious part of it, but the whole thing of identifying as if you're a biological sexual male and identifying with the feminine as a woman is all archetypal. I think the entire thing is based on archetypal, not necessarily dysfunction, but archetypal conflict of some, and even conflict isn't the right word. It's just archetypal. It's like whatever archetype or archetypes or whatever that you're constellating, and why is where that comes from. I think this whole idea of changing your physical body to match an archetypal constellation is fucking nuts.
Well,
and
that's a transsexual experience, and that
but there's a lot of transgender people that are going that route. Okay, it's not like that's
So you can definitely say that there are people who naturally lean toward being transgendered, which is that they're in the male body, but they feel better, safe, good, presenting in as a female.
And you know what? 100% that's okay.
But let me just I think what's confusing is if you can say, look, there's this experience in which you're perfectly fine with your penis, but you'd like to present in a feminine way. You'd like to be referred to as a woman. You like she, her pronouns. Cool. You don't have to then go and have surgery. Now, if you're transsexual, that's a whole different thing. I don't feel good in this body. This body needs to change before I can feel any kind of comfort.
That's the problem. Yeah. I don't think transgender is a problem. I mean, maybe psychologically there's some screwiness in it, but what I was saying, every fucking thing is psychologically screwy. Yeah. There's no middle of the bell curve that applies to every human. I mean, we'd have a fucking boring life if every single human being was like a robot and was exactly the same psychologically. That's what gives life pleasure and whatever. But if there is an unconscious system that is getting in the way and causing somebody pain by feeling they're in the wrong body or whatever, then that can be worked on. I don't think that's the case for everybody. I think there are very fully conscious people that have a penis and would rather be a woman. I
agree with you. The real disservice is that there is this ban on or taboo against any kind of exploration of a possible explanation for transsexual, transgender experiences that are not simply, it's just, that is what it is. It's biological. It's determined. There's no debating it. I don't think who wins in that. If we can't say, well, maybe there are some people for whom it is a kind of a thing that they're born with that's immutable in them. And maybe there are other people that are having a different experience where it's not, but they believe that it is. And if we can't parse out between the two, now look, I completely understand why any investigation into the origins of these things feels threatening to people who think that's just going to be used as a way to devalue them, to undermine their belief, and to pathologize their experience and therefore put them under threat. I completely understand why those people fear that. I get it. But it works against people who are in this experience when people are unable to investigate the origins and understand it at a deeper level in a way that doesn't get them, you're not under threat of being called a bigot for asking the question.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree. I will, and I'll get in trouble for this, and maybe I'll change my mind.
Yeah,
I would draw the line to say that transsexualism, where you're physically changing your chemistry or your physical body, is a mental pathology. Yeah. I would say that. Now, maybe I'll change my mind. I doubt it. I mean, something would have to come up, some research or something to prove that there is some kind of, you're born with some kind of something or other. But I just don't go there.
I mean, I think
I don't think they should be persecuted. Okay. I don't think it should be legal for doctors to perform mutilation surgeries on anybody for any reason. Okay. That's just a communal thing to say that our culture should not allow that. But as far as a person that feels the need for that and becomes suicidal for that reason, I mean, yes, psychologically, I think that's something that should be worked on. We're not allowed to do that as therapists in Canada. It's against the law.
One, man. I mean, because the perception has always been, if you don't agree that the reason that rates of suicide are higher in the trans community is because they're not being accepted by the massive number of bigots out there, that in faced with this bigotry, they have no other resource than to commit suicide. Not that there is an intersection between people who are having a trans experience and who are mentally ill. I mean, that's just nuts that we can't explore that. It's crazy to say no. I think that there could be that there's this rise of suicide in this community because it's also overlapping with mental illness.
They're just correlated, yeah. I mean, but the number of
is wrong.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you. The number of clients I've had, and not very many, okay, that are transsexual. Before I even get into that, I mean, I had recently one guy that was born a woman and had bottom surgery, top surgery, everything. And I mean, he looked like a guy, comes in with a beard and everything. So I didn't even think of it. He has such major psychological issues from his childhood and whatever, that it's like no different than seeing an alcoholic, that the etiology of their condition is deeper. It's down there. And I mean, I'm not saying that I know everything, that I've seen every trans person, but I'm just reinforcing what you just said. I mean, to not even be able to investigate that, to look at that and like say, well, isn't this a result of something else that goes deeper? And anyway.
Here's another scary thought that based on the topic of today, there seems to be research that's pointing to not just that a disproportionate number of people who have a trans experience are on the autism spectrum, but so are people that are self-identified incels.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm like, and you start wrapping your head around, okay, if we look at that, then again, I mean, it's scary about autism that, I mean, that this is it's on the rise and it's causing such huge shifts. But then I'm also thinking too, like, well, what's the crossover here? Because obviously if we start to say, okay, if we start to look at this on an archetypal level, like you're suggesting, I can make a whole lot of sense archetypally about why there would be a crossover between those two things. Now, how the neurochemistry of what we call autism spectrum disorder influences that's a little bit above my pay grade. I mean, I know that there are people that have investigated the connection between the neurological and the archetypal. I can't remember his name. There's a great book that Robert Moore always recommends about from the 70s or 80s who investigated that. I wish I could remember more, guys.
I'd love to.
That's great work.
Think of it.
Great work to have done. It's probably relatively I hate to use the word primitive, but like I think now if you read it, you probably go, well, this needs to be updated. But this is my point, is that, well, a lot of that stuff needs to get updated, including understanding of these experiences through that lens. And this is the thing, the way that free speech works is that if you want to explore that as being pathological, that's what free speech is. If you want to explore that as being a sin,
okay. Yeah, right. Well.
Yeah. Now, if you want to take
that chance, you'll be able to do anything.
People because you think they're sinners, you're going to find me in the way.
No, same here.
That's not cool.
Same here.
But if you want to say, hey, we want to do a theological exploration and break down all the ways in which homosexuality is a damn nasty sin, and we can prove it through the Bible, whatever.
Yeah, unfortunately, free speech too often runs into action. And if you agree with free speech, then you get into this thing of saying, well, if you incite action through your speech, then you're in trouble. I mean, we could go.
Sure. If through free speech, you have come under the belief that, let's say, Israel is committing genocide. What's to stop you from them? Okay, well, I believe that you're committing genocide, that you're committing mass murders. What's to stop me then from saying, well, then I'm justified in murdering Zionists?
Yeah, right. Well, that's what it leads to.
To your point, it's a very scary sort of leap to make. Yeah. But yeah.
We should stop, folks. We kept you on here if you're still around.
We talked about wounded. We started with wounded men, and we ended up
talking about all kinds of things.
These days, how could you not? Everything ends in free speech.
I know it does. And all of this traces back to vaccines. Anyway, so and I'm making a sort of joke, but it's we're talking about autism causing all these things, and
I know.
I mean, we could go on and on.
When I said autism, you would go there.
Yeah. I mean, it all leads back to the poisoning of the human mind. I mean, all of this stuff, whether it be
plot, like you said. I mean, the conspiratorially.
But what is that? What is that? I mean, isn't that perfect paranoia?
Vaccines, autism.
Yeah, I know.
They see that also.
Well, then it all traces back bottom of the rabbit hole is that it's all evil. It's the devil. Yeah. And it's Satan who's trying to destroy God's creation. Okay, we could go there. Okay, but then you could say that Satan comes in the form of alien lizards, and that's what David Icke says. Okay, so alien lizards that are running the world, that are actually lizards that are just covered up to look like humans. I mean, it's a deep rabbit hole. You just keep going down. But anyhow, we'll stop at that.
On lizards.
Okay, everybody. On lizards.
Lizard people.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's a good answer. It takes the blame off of us pretty easily.
Actually, I heard him talking to somebody in the medicine world, like, who's familiar with the DMT realms, in which there are plenty of motifs of trickster, lizardy, energetic beings that kind of creep around in that space. Well,
going back to the archetypal thing, lizards that are running the world is a very archetypal concept. The devil itself is. I mean, God is too. I mean, it's all. I'm
not having a reaction where I can't not think of what other people, like normal people, what their reaction is when they start to hear. The problem is that the world's being run by lizard people who are evil. And how they just have this sort of immediate wall.
Oh yeah, sure. No blame on me. I ain't a lizard.
Yeah. Now we get lizards. You have to take off your skin or something. You have to
I don't know. I guess so. Just rip it off.
Or maybe we'll test the temperature of your blood. We'll put a little thermometer in your blood.
How warm
are you? And if you're cold,
there was actually a TV series called V that was about lizards
in the 80s.
Do you remember that? Yeah, in the 80s.
I remember it because I remember it coming on and my mother saying, "Oh no, you're not watching that. That's not appropriate."
Oh yeah. I knew the guy that did the music for it. Yeah. It's wild. Yeah. Anyway, I'm Todd Hayen, toddhayen.com, toddhayentherapy.com if you want to get in touch with me. And William is existential counseling Toronto. / Yeah, cool. And we will. I'm wondering if there's like 2 people still watching this.
After whatever. Watch the drop off, you said that lizard people and viewership.
That's right. Well, who knows? We could have increased it. The moment I mentioned lizards, it could have gone up. Maybe. I mean, that's like.
But then YouTube would suppress it. It was
maybe.
Maybe we'll get demonetized. Are we monetized? Or we'll get demonetized.
No, we're not.
Find out we're talking about this.
No, as long as the mention of vaccines would have taken us out more than anything else.
Now you fucked us. Now they're going to take us down.
I know.
You should say screwed. The jab, whatever.
Yeah, but I didn't say anything about the COVID vaccine though. That's
we're fucked.
Right.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week.
Okay, see you guys
in prison for talking about vaccines.
That's right. See you next time. Take care.